Everyone, welcome back to another episode of our student athlete interview series. My name's Katie. I'm one of the interns here at Sports Finder this summer. The student athlete interview is just a series of interviews with student athletes that shows the life, the recruiting process at all levels and sports. So our guest today is Haylei Archer. She's a rising sophomore pitcher for the softball team at Cal Berkley. Hi, Haylei.
Hi,
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just get into it. So tell us about a little bit when you started playing softball and like why you started playing softball.
So I started playing t-ball at a super young age, but my mom was kind of the one who got me into it. She played softball as a pitcher, like grew up playing, played in high school, but she didn't play at the collegiate level. So she got me out in the backyard when I was younger and had me start pitching and all that fun stuff.
Awesome. So when you were younger, like started out super young, did you have any role models that you kind of looked up to, or was it just like a way of playing that you looked up to?
I definitely looked up to Jenny Finch. Like that was definitely my big idol. And when I first started playing, I wanted to wear number 27 because she was just a role model, a pitcher, and something that I aspired to be. And I always wanted to go to the University of Arizona because that's where she played in college. But definitely her. And I did a bunch of research. I actually played her we had to do a wax museum in elementary school, and I chose to be her because I was just super starstruck by her and all of her accomplishments.
That's awesome. So like you've been playing for a while. When did you know that like you wanted to play in college and that it's like a potential option for you? Like what age and level was that?
I would say probably when I was 12, I knew that I wanted to play in college, and then um in seventh grade I got my first offer to a school. And so that's when I knew I was like, okay, maybe I am good enough to do this.
Yeah,
And then the more I played and got better, I realized it was definitely something I wanted to do and I knew that I could.
awesome. So what was your recruiting process like specifically at Cal where you are now?
So actually, Cal was the last school that I guess I went to and looked at. It was my last tournament of my junior year of travel ball summer, and I was out in California playing, and they saw me at a game, and they talked to my coach, and they were like, "Hey, we like her," and so then they asked me to meet with me, and I went and talked to them for a few hours, and they asked me on a visit to Cal. And 2 months later in September, before my senior year, I went out to Cal and checked it out. And literally as soon as I stepped on campus, I was like, this is absolutely the place that I want to be. And as soon as I got home, I told my parents my decision, and I called the coach and told him.
Awesome. So you talked about it a little bit, but what made you choose Cal, like as opposed to the other schools? What was the feel that like you said right when you stepped on campus you knew, like why was that?
I was kind of just starstruck by the campus and how beautiful it is, and just all the trees, super cool buildings, and the history in Berkeley, and then just the degree that Cal gives you, and all the opportunities I could get with internships and jobs, and the connections of people that have went to Cal or alumni is incredible. And I knew I wanted to get a good degree and also be in a beautiful place with San Francisco right across the bay, and just all kinds of opportunities at Cal that I wouldn't get at other schools.
For sure. So after having your first year, like what's the biggest change from high school to college, both academically and like athletically playing softball?
I would say as far as academically, Cal is definitely a super tough academic school. So I kind of had to, I mean, in high school, I could kind of just get by with my own brains. I didn't really need to study, but at Cal, I absolutely needed to study, needed to have a schedule of when my quizzes were going to be, when my homework, just being more organized and knowing what's due when, and preparing days in advance, even weeks in advance for exams or papers, and just and also using my resources of tutors and people that can look at my paper, just trying to get the best grade possible on each assignment.
Yeah. And then what was the biggest change like on the softball field?
Softball, I would just say probably the speed of the game and just like the commitment and demand as far as like being in the weight room and being at practice, having long practices, long days, and just when like you're exhausted and your body is had enough, you can't give up and you got to keep going because you're not only doing it for yourself but your team and the university you represent. So just kind of no matter how tired and tough it gets, you just gotta keep going.
Yeah. So how did you balance like the new change in academics and athletics? What were some tips that helped you? What were some things that you struggled with balancing those two things?
Some things I struggled with probably right off the bat was just like trying to manage like my social life and trying to meet people like as soon as I got to school because I'm 3,000 miles away. I don't know anybody. Just kind of trying to get my priorities in line because I was super excited to be there. And then I'm like, but wait, I have schoolwork. And but I would just say some tips is like use the advice from your teammates and the upperclassmen because they were in your shoes at one point too. And I think they're the best advice givers because they live the everyday life that you do and they lived it before you. And so I think we have a lot of resources at Cal, like tutors and advisors and all that stuff, but I think my teammates and coaches were absolutely the best way for me to kind of find my way and to just listen to their advice and not try to pave my own path, not try to recreate the wheel, just kind of go with what they say because they've always been right.
Yeah. So what was it like playing during the pandemic, especially like as a freshman, you have no other experiences as like college experience. So what was it like with the pandemic?
It was definitely tough. I mean, Cal had a lot of restrictions in place that because they were trying to keep us very healthy and kind of keep us away from COVID. They didn't want us to get sick. Um, it was definitely tough. I mean, me personally, I was contact traced twice, and then I did end up getting COVID. So I missed 6 weeks out of my season, like being in an isolation dorm, which was really tough. And not really knowing anybody, being all by myself. And not only that, but in the spring, we kind of had to give up our life if we wanted to play just to protect ourselves and our teammates and the rest of our athletics because, I mean, there's just people getting COVID left and right. So I think it was tough and not something I wanted to experience per se, but I'm glad that, it's almost over and we're ready for a normal season.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say your greatest accomplishment is as an athlete?
Probably just I don't know, I think my leadership and the lessons I've kind of learned and the people that I've met, the relationships I've made with teammates and friends and having all the lifelong friends, it's not so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool accomplishments that I've had in the game and things that I've won, but I would say just the people I've met and the life lessons that I've learned and the dedication is kind of shaped who I am and I wouldn't change that for anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So lastly, do you have any advice for student athletes that are trying to get recruited maybe, or once they get to college, trying to navigate through that whole thing? What's your best advice?
I would say as cliche it is to really just trust the process when you're trying to get recruited because I mean, I was kind of late, as far as the trend goes. I mean, most people were committing early, but I waited till the fall of my senior year to really figure out. I mean, I went through a ton of schools before I found Cal, and I was just at some points I was really ready to just be you know what, I'll just commit here. I'm done with all of this recruiting process, but really just waiting and trusting your gut and knowing that finally when you find the right place, you'll absolutely know it and you'll get a good feeling and you won't be able to stop smiling. And just, I mean, when you're in freshman in college, really just trust your teammates, listen to your teammates, and kind of soak it all in and try to just have a good time, but also make sure your priorities are right, and that'll set you up for success.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good rest of your day.
You too.